I'll make a kind of huge today explanation and very short and concise about what branding is and how branding can help you on your companies and your startups, according to what I learned and from helping other companies, but also by creating my own companies. Okay, so let me a little bit introduce myself. I was a student at ESADE. I finished like 16 years ago already, pretty long ago. I spent some couple of years as an internship in HP, which was probably the funniest and most luxurious moment of my life. I have to say that at that time, the interns at HP earned the same that interns are today. So imagine how the quality of life has been going down and down during the last 15 or 20 years. It's dramatic, and that's something that keeps on happening. So, I also was working on one of the really nice startups in the year 2000, before the dot-com crash. What was called Infonomia, created by Alfonso Cornella, which is considered to be one of the internet gurus in Spain. And I was always working there as a marketing assistant, marketing intern, pretty fun. Then later, I suddenly came back from India, from an exchange program, and I didn't know anything about branding. Nobody told me anything in the university about branding. So I went to an interview at Suma, which is a big branding agency, and they hired me. And I didn't know anything, so I learned a lot there for a few years, till I decided to create Firma, which is the place where I work now. In the meanwhile, I've been teaching at ESADE, I'm teaching at Elisaba, and I'm teaching at Fox Eyes. So I started 3 companies. So I can also tell you a little bit about being an entrepreneur, but I will never consider myself as an entrepreneur. I'll never have to look for investors, so I don't know anything about that. And I don't know anything about technical issues, so all my startups have to do with service regarding marketing or branding, like Firma, or product, like Firmamento, which is what you see here, which is a clothing brand inspired by surf, which I love, and it's my passion. And then also we have some cows, some happy cows. And one day, you know, they have to die, and we finally eat them. The funny thing about Casa Cerdanya is that because we like meat, and one of our partners is living in Puigcerdà, which is in the hills, we have some free cows walking around in Kerforadat, in the top of El Cadi mountain. And we are capable of selling eco meat, because they are eco, certified cow meat, at the same price as regular and standard meat. And this is our value proposition, okay? And that is why Casa Cerdanya is working pretty well at the moment, and we start selling Casa Cerdanya in Corte Inglés recently. What can I tell you about all these 3 startups? This is for fun. We're losing money. This is okay. Okay. It's like break-even point. And this is what's sponsoring the rest of the 2. Okay. My biggest learning is that you can only be good at doing one thing, and you can only, or one startup can only be successful if you put all your energy in that startup. And recently, I'm just really focused at Firma, and that's, I guess, why Firma is working properly. And the rest is like, it's going on, you know. I have some T-shirts to give to friends, to dress my kids and to dress myself, and it's fun. But the really funny thing about everything is that Firmamento is more well-known than Firma. And this is the fucking shocking thing about digital economy. We have a lot of followers. I was in Paris the other day to a fair of furniture, and I was talking to a big company. I present myself, and they didn't know about Firma, of course. And I said, yeah, you know, I also start another company, which is Firmamento. Oh, you start Firmamento, we should do a collaboration together. And I said, okay, again, I'm going to lose money because we only do collaborations and it's fun and it's really, it's very useful for projecting a good image and some news about the company, but it doesn't turn into business. Okay, so this is a little bit of learning about startups that I have. Okay, let's talk about branding. I guess that probably none of your companies have the same success as this one. So I'm not going to talk about branding considering the learnings of these huge companies. But for me and for you, probably, the learnings of branding today has more to do with Wallapop, Airbnb, Uber, Tinder, Grindr, whatever, than to Zara, Apple, or Nike. These are phenomenons in terms of brand, of how to manage a brand today. And probably they invest very few in what historically has been considered to be branding, a name and a logo. Okay? Probably the name came suddenly to put some title on a PowerPoint, or having a pizza, or having a brainstorming internally without investing into a branding agency or a communication agency or whatever. But those are huge companies today, and we should look at them in terms of what can they teach us from a branding perspective, okay? So that's the very old definition of branding. That's what branding is not today. It's not about creating a brand, a naming, or a logo. We do that. We do that for startups like you. I'm going to show you some examples of what we've been doing so far in terms of startups. You should invest on that, of course. If not, Firma will not make any money. But it's not the most important thing, okay? Branding is about a product plus magic. That's what branding is today. With that order of things, if your product is worthless, if it doesn't make any sense, if it doesn't work, you're going to be losing money on agencies, creating campaigns, advertising, whatever. Okay, that's critical. But the funny thing is that all the products look the same. So I'm telling you that you should focus on product, but then all the products look the same. It's kind of contradiction, but it's really like this. It's really heavy, and it's really hard to differentiate from an iPhone to a Samsung Galaxy. I will not even be able to explain you what are the differences in terms of life battery, megapixels, whatever. An Nikes and an Adidas, the sneakers, they look the same, they cost the same, they are produced very close in terms of factories in the same city. What is the difference if the product, they look the same? It's really hard today to be different in the product, okay? And be competitive in an industry which is already existing in a service or product oriented is really hard. Still, there are some examples that I want to put on the table, like Dyson. Okay, I don't know any more boring category than vacuum cleaners. I mean, I would never put any dollar in the vacuum cleaner industry. And still, those guys, they reinvent completely a category. So it's like, okay, there's the vacuum cleaners and there's Dyson. And they reinvent the category, and that's something really astonishing in a way, you know? What's going on in the digital category, in the digital context, in terms of product or service? So how other companies are creating some interest. I mean, the first factor should be that that thing really works. Okay, before to meet somebody, you should go to a disco, you know, invest hours in alcohol, tickets, drugs, clothing, whatever, perfume, hours, and maybe you get lucky one night, no? And now it's, I mean, if we just turn on your Tinder or Grindr app, I mean, probably we're going to be meeting people in the same room. So that's, and why the big success is it works. That thing works. I mean, it really helped me to avoid all the hassle from going or having to go at night into some place that I don't really like, you know. So first thing, should work. Second thing, please come on, give a wow effect on what you do. Put some energy in surprising people. You know how Segunda Mano used to be. Now it's called Vivo. They invest a lot of money in creating a new brand. And that was going on. You could hardly contact the guy who was selling that bike. And the moment you get you put all the information on that form, and then the bike was already sold, or it was stolen, or it makes no sense to use that app, to use that website. And then, some guys, they created Wallapop, and it was so easy to use, so easy to get in contact with the people who were selling the bikes, so easy to find your own bike who was stolen, which happened to me, and so easy to get in contact immediately, real time, without having to give all your information before getting to know that was already sold, in a way. So that was the wow effect in that case, was, okay, all the embarrassing things of Segunda Mano, for example, they were practically solved with the first version of Wallapop. And the final thing, as a user, if that new thing makes me rich, that's going to be the best, my dream. I have a house, and when I go outside for a weekend or on vacation, I can rent it. So I can make money out of that house that it only cost me money and pay a loan. So suddenly, Airbnb gives me the chance to convert me into a landlord, or as Uber, as a taxi driver. So if an app or a solution or a startup can give users the power to earn money in a new way, it's going to be, as a product from that formula of branding, very interesting to people. Okay. So what about the magic? That's what I'm good at. What about the magic? I mean, Walter Landor was probably the first guy who talked about branding. There's a biggest agency in the world in branding is called Landor. And that guy says that products are made in a factory, but brands are created in minds. And he also said that people is not buying cosmetics. What we are buying is la illusion and the aspiration of looking good and attracting people, okay? So that's what magic is about. When we try to create a brand, what we are trying is to define a positioning statement, an idea of what we're trying to sell, which is not about our product, which is something more than this. And that positioning statement, I'm going to talk about, okay, should be implemented into all the brand touchpoints in a coherent and consistent way. That's the most important slide probably here today. That's the secret of branding, okay? When defining a positioning statement, we should take into account that it should be ownable. You should look at your DNA, how you are, how you behave as a company, and be able to recognize some things that are relevant to your audience. That's very important. How you're going to know what's relevant. You know how Zara is designing their new collections today? They are following the most famous Instagrammers. They check out the likes that they have when they are wearing Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Dior clothes. And according to the likes, they produce one thing or the other, and they copy one thing or the other. That's the market research they do right now. So that's what it's really relevant. What is relevant in terms of fashion is what Instagrammers are posting and what we click on like. Okay? Our brand proposition should be different, of course, from our competitors. Sometimes we don't look at our competitors, and sometimes we don't care really much, but we should do that and identify if we are different in certain things. Okay? One detail, for example, on how to make money if you're an app. And it has a lot to do with getting to know your client and how the client behaves and uses your app. The Tinder, okay. How do they make money? One of the ways they realize that people uses the app is that you keep on moving on. You keep on clicking through people, thinking, because the humans, we are like this, we are optimistic, and we think that the future is going to be better. So we keep on moving ahead, thinking that the next person we're going to see, we're going to like him more than the previous one. That's a good learning about how as a humans we behave, as optimistic people. But at Tinder, they take advantage of that. And they said, okay, moving ahead is for free. Moving backwards, you should pay. Because the moment you've seen all the people which is around you, and you say, oh, you know, that one that I saw at the very beginning, it's the one I like. So then going back to that person, you pay. And that's how we make money. Internally, as a product, as a technology, it costs the same to develop going ahead or going forward button. But that's how we're going to make money, okay? By knowing your target, by knowing how it matters to them. That's an insight, okay? We should learn how they use our product and try to convert it into some cash. And finally, our value proposition should be durable in timing. If we are promising something, we are standing out for something which our neighbor is going to copy in one day of developing, that's not a good value proposition, as you can imagine. I'm not going to show it to you. I really recommend it. Probably you've seen it, the speech of Simon Sinek at one of the TED events. Now he's becoming a millionaire just because of the Start with the Why speech. Basically what he's saying is that historically, brands has been presenting to us, explaining us what they do, telling some of them how they do things, and very few of them explaining why they do things. But as I explain you, if we look at companies and what they do in terms of product, it's really hard to see a difference. It's really hard to see a difference in between a jacket of North Face and a jacket of Patagonia. They all have Gore-Tex, they all have Primaloft, they all have double zipper, and whatever, and they cost 300 and 320. Where is the fucking difference? The difference is not in what they do, the difference is probably on how they do things, and most important, on why is Patagonia doing the outdoor jackets, for example. That's what's gonna involve me as a client and say, you know, I'm gonna buy the Patagonia one instead of the North Face, because what I know of Patagonia is that they invest a lot in Conservación Patagónica in Chile and Argentina. They invest a lot in saving the planet, blah, blah, blah. So I will feel attracted and I will convert into that brand because of the why, not because of the what. I will probably feel attracted by the product. I can feel attracted by a car passing through the street, but I might not buy it, okay, until the moment I know the story of how they do things and why they do things. So the example of Patagonia, you know the brand? No? Okay. That guy here is Yvon Chouinard, the owner so far, and the startup guy, the entrepreneur behind Patagonia. His story is really interesting. In year 68 to 69, well, initially he was working here. His father owns that little atelier, doing, I don't know the word in English, producing iron pieces. I don't know the word. Anyway, he loved to go to Yosemite to do some climbing, so he started producing his own pieces to climb there, and that became a huge success. So he was selling pieces to other people. Then he decided to go on surfing and climbing from California to Los Andes, to Corcovado. There's a nice documentary called 180 Degrees South. I really recommend it, with some friends. And the moment they came back, one of them started up the North Face, and the other one started up Patagonia. Even though they were really good friends. The guy who started North Face died on an accident in Patagonia. Both of them together, they started up Conservación Patagónica, buying all the wildlands in Patagonia to avoid energy and power companies to build presas, okay, for water. Patagonia so far has been famous for doing only the sports and the outdoor sports and jackets that he practices. So he's practicing surfing, climbing, fly fishing, and they are producing some items for fly fishing. And if he wears it, if he says, okay, I'm going to wear that, I can sell that product, which is a really nice why I do things, okay? The other reason why they do things is to prevent companies to destroy the ecosystem in Patagonia. They have created that NGO called 1% for the Planet, for which they dedicate 1% of the sales, not the profits, the sales, to the initiative regarding sustainability. They have the initiative called Warmwear, which is that they repair all the jackets, all the products that you have from them. You can go to a store of Patagonia in the US and they will fix it there. They even have a kind of truck going around the US and even Europe that they can fix it there. They have a small sewing machine there on the back of the caravan, repairing your clothes. They've been always against Black Friday. And what they promised last year was that they will give all the money, not all the profits, all the money that they make on Black Friday to NGO and sustainability corporation or organizations. They sell $10 million. They sold that. So it's pretty much crazy what they are doing. And that explains why Patagonia is an interesting company in terms of brand proposition. It's authentic. It's made out of passion. And if your company, if you are capable of explaining the why you're doing things, probably people will feel more engaged with your brand than just looking at your app or at your shop or at your clothes, okay? There's another example of the guys from Airbnb. I don't know if you know that that was the first logo before they became rich and they decided to invest in branding, okay? But the story of, do you know the story of the founders of Airbnb? Okay, there was year 2008 and there used to be the Democratic National Convention Committee happening in San Francisco, where the three of them studied and lived, and they share a flat. And they realized that all the rooms in the hotels were fully booked because of that committee. So they decided, why don't we rent our rooms? And they created a very crappy website where you can book their own rooms and some of the friends' rooms. So that was pretty much a success. And they had, why don't we just dedicate ourselves to that project, which we call Airbnb for Air, Bed and Breakfast. So that's why the name is like B&B. And they say that we need $6,000 to dedicate 1 month of our life to code Airbnb as we imagine. So they came up with a really nice idea. They created a website where you can buy cereals for breakfast. Rather you were for McCain or for Obama, okay? And they make, I don't know, more than $20,000. But the nice thing is that they send for free the 2 boxes of cereals to journalists, political journalists, all around US. So they were mentioned out of one journalist in the Washington Post about that he received those cereals, and that's how they, all of the campaign and awareness on Airbnb exploded. Okay, so again, we trust them because they started themselves renting their own houses, and that's again a story of passion and authenticity. And finally, a story that I love because it's really close and I know them, and it's how the world is going on today. This is the guys from Morrufi. Morrufi today, it's a product brand, and they sell vermouth, olives, pulpo, afeira on a pot, and all those kind of Galician conservas, okay? But how all that started is with a blog, a WordPress blog 10 years ago. They start generating content. You can create your brand today. You can create a product brand today by starting creating content. They were just posting the bars and old bodegas from Barcelona that they love. They went there, they had lunch or dinner, they took some pictures, and they posted it here. Then suddenly, the magazine Time Out started mentioning them because they were like the guys who know the most about old bodegas. And everyone was following that blog. And then Marcel, that guy, had the chance to buy that little tiny bar in the corner he used to be a graphic designer and designing websites mostly. So he started with a bar, then he opened another one called Altra Vida, then another one inside La Illa Diagonal, And then later on, he created his own line of products. So normally, my clients, like Lay's, for example, or PepsiCo, they are doing products. They would love to have a shop by their own, and they pay you to create content. But now, suddenly, we realize how things are changing and how today, branding yourself start probably with being authentic and explaining what you like and showing where you go to eat, what places you like, okay? And then people connect with you. I'm talking about positioning statement. I'm talking about having a value proposition which is really clear to your audience. This is a very clear example, like Duracell. Okay, Duracell lasts long, and that's something that they have been putting in our mind for years. Whatever they do, whatever the campaign is, even they have that funny rabbit or whatever, they have the same message. They are working on the same direction. That's consistency. Okay, that's being coherent. I can tell you one thing: the smaller the company, like some of the startups that I work with, the more inconsistent they are. Everything they do in terms of communication, they want to do it new and different from the previous thing. And you know that we have one brochure, but you know it's already 6 months since we did that. We should change that. And I mean, look please at what Vodafone is doing. It's red, it's on a box, the text, and with an image on the background for years, for years, for years. Because we as consumers, as users, we are not impacted by everything that your company is doing. We are impacted by very few of the things that your company is doing. But of course, if you're sitting on the table of the company, you're creating every element, and you think that, you know, it's too much of red already. We should change. We are not red anymore. But still, your client doesn't have a clear idea that you're red. Okay? You know what's this?
The dress of Sharon Stone.
Okay.
Without Sharon Stone.
Without Sharon Stone. This is Basic Instinct. You know the movie? This is one frame of the movie. In a second of a movie, there are 24 frames. So in a movie of 2 hours, there's millions of frames. This frame, without Sharon Stone, is the core identity of Basic Instinct. This sole frame synthesizes what that movie is. So being capable of identifying what makes you unique will help you to take out many efforts from other things. Okay? Focus on one thing. Don't try to focus on many things. Don't try to tell your consumers and your audiences or your investors 10 reasons why invest in you or buy your products. Try to have a single idea and go forward to that one. There's the example of, it's not here today, but Warby Parker. You know Warby Parker? Warby Parker is a US startup selling glasses. I don't know the word in English, graduadas. Correcting glasses, okay. They were the first one to sell correcting glasses online, solely online at the very beginning. Like it or not, they choose a brand concept, literacy. Okay, literacy. And that sole concept inspires every brand touch point that they have. The name Warby Parker is one of the main characters in Jacques Kerouac novel. Okay. They have, from the very first day, an initiative, a social initiative, that buy a pair, give a pair, for schools of children that have no money to invest on correcting glasses so they can read. When they started having corners in, for example, Urban Outfitters in the US, that little corner that they have, they call it the readery. And you can see some glasses and some books. Now that they have some retail stores, physical retail stores, they look like bookstores. And you can buy magazines, you can buy books, and of course you can buy their glasses. And their pop-up store that they have was a school bus, one of those yellow US school buses. Okay, so all the brand touchpoints were working on that single concept, which was literacy. Okay. if you sell knives, your brand value proposition is that you cut, okay? And that's it. If you are that really Kikkoman soy sauce, that's your brand essence. Your brand essence is that you're Japanese soy sauce. And because you have that packaging, which is unique and patented, with 2 holes here, that means that when you serve it, it doesn't come like bubbling, okay? You can create the Japanese flag with your cap of your pack, okay? And that really expresses your brand essence. You don't have to say anything. Don't start saying things, how many calories, how do you produce it, where do you produce it, a promotion. That's it. It's easy, okay? For example, let's guess. How would you add a permanent marker? What's the essence? If I'm trying to sell you a permanent marker, what I'm promising you? That it's permanent. And what's permanent in terms of ink? Tattoo. Great. So how I can show you on a printed campaign that idea with a tattoo. But how can I tell you and show you that the time has been passing? Old person. How can I know that tattoo is old?
Next to another one that did favor it, then you get a lot of information.
More or less. You're very close. A tattoo, an old person. Well, that's the solution. Okay. So somebody who's already dead. That's how I can tell you that was done by. There's a kind of inconsistency here. Okay, that when Jimi Hendrix was alive, our marker was not in the market, but who cares? Okay. Anyway, so I would recommend you to use. Doesn't matter if it's the brand key model or the brand diamond model that Danone uses or whatever model is. That's one that we use at Firma, for example, that helps us to identify at the very end which is the essence of your brand, which is the value proposition of your brand. And it should take into account something which is generic into your category, which is that upper side, which is a good definition on your consumers. What are your competitors offering them? And finally, what is the insight? And the insight is that need, which is not provided, which is not solved by your competitors. You should listen to people, how they use already existing products in that category, and what's going wrong with that's apps, that product that are already there. And then you should come with your brand proposition, okay? You will have some profits or benefits of your clients will have some profits of using your app, your product, whatever, based on reasons to believe. That's really important. So Danone, they are the kings of this. They sell you Activia. You know Activia? Okay? We used to have Shakira advertising Activia. And Shakira, uses Activia so she can go to the toilet every morning at 8 a.m., okay, to regulate herself. And that's the profit. That is a profit. What's the reason why? Why should I believe that Shakira is going to the toilet at 8 a.m. every morning? It's because Danone has created a secret formula consisting on bifidus activus and lacei casi immunitas. You will not find that if you look at the Activia. It's not there, but they invent these things, Those are the reasons to believe in a product. Gore-Tex, Intel, they are reasons to believe why HP computer is faster or why a North Face jacket is better than another one. So some ingredient brands like Intel or Gore-Tex became then later on some reasons to believe into another brand, okay? So I've been talking about defining the brand positioning. Any questions so far? Okay. Next thing is that once we have a clear idea of our brand proposition, we should replicate it and implement it into every single touch point that we have. I think I will share this with all the people. Okay, sure. Great. So this is a typical funnel, of conversion funnel. I mean, you know about that. And on that curve line, we can see many of the existing brand touchpoints. Some of them are physical, some of them are digital. And at what moment of your life cycle or the consumer journey, you should click on that button. You should consider them. Okay, so you will read about it later on. But what I want to show you is that everything that you do as a communication part of your brand should be taken under consideration. For example, brand architecture. You start today with a solution, with a product, but probably you're going to create line extensions. And by how you define your brand essence, you will be able to do some things, but you won't be able to do others. For example, on the deodorant category, Axe, you know Axe, the brand Axe? Okay, and you know Rexona, you know both brands. And you've probably seen some some campaigns of Axe. No? Like, you know, there's a guy, he puts himself some Axe, and suddenly all the girls go crazy after him. If you look carefully to those commercials, you will see that the guy is not that attractive. And you know why that happens? It's because the men ourselves, we buy our own deodorant, and so we project our image to that guy. So if we say that that guy is not that good looking, we can do it also, you know? It's the opposite what's going on with the perfumes. When Christmas comes, and you will see all the commercials of perfumes. Who buys the perfumes? Your girlfriend or your boyfriend. So that impressive guy there should convince your partner, not yourself. So your partner is looking at that nice-looking boy, thinking that maybe because of the perfume you will become that beautiful. So, but this is about targeting. That's another story. If you're Axe, and if you have a very clear brand essence, which is when you use my product, you're going to have success in terms of sex, what can I do apart from deodorant? What can be my line extensions? Can I create a clothing brand, for example? Maybe. Can I open a disco? Or create some love boats vacations? Or condoms? People will accept that because my brand essence, my brand value proposition has nothing to do with how I smell. It has to do with attractiveness, with success, blah, blah, blah. But if I'm Rexona and my brand promise is 24 hours odorless, what can I do in terms of line extensions? Soap. Not that sexy. You realize how important it is. So the moment we define brand architecture, it's afterwards. I identify which is my brand essence and my value proposition. What's behind Virgin is that Richard Branson attitude towards huge categories and denying the leader on the category, denying a dictator or an autocracy, an oligarchy on a category. And he goes there and he starts with a cola, or he goes to the UK, a free market of trains, trying to compete with the national train system in the UK. So that's what makes Virgin so transversal. It's not what they do, it's why they do things, okay? Another very important brand touchpoint of your brand is your visual identity. It's so strong that even if I change the names, okay, here, you still see or make a link with cola because of the shape, because of the typography, because of the colors. It's really important. It's really important. Be iconic. Don't be complicated. Don't create a really complicated. I mean, that used to be the very first, one of the very first logos of Pepsi. I mean, no one will create such a typography today. Make something very clear, very iconic, okay, that people can identify easily. Typography is important. Everything is important. Don't use any typography. I mean, that's probably one of the learnings of Steve Jobs. He went one day to a graphic design school session in the university, and then suddenly he realized how important typography was, and he decided to let us choose typographies. in the system when we write. I mean, that was one of his inventions. So typography may tell about you, may make your communication more efficient. We identify the brands behind all these sentences, all these words here, just because of typography. Okay. Brand identity. I already told you a little bit, but when I show you this, you know, what do you see there in FedEx? That's been probably one of the most successful rebranding campaigns for the last 30 years. I think it was done by Landor or Interbrand. And there's one nice thing about this brand that probably you know, but if you don't know, from now on you will only see that thing, which is this little arrow here. Huh? And this is magic, because if you're a courier company, it's nice. The arrow means something in your sector, in your category. Okay, so the arrow become part of the system. And what is more magical even is that when you translate your brand to Arabic, you know, they write from right to left. So the arrow is always there, but pointing out to what Arabs consider to be the good direction. Okay? In terms of colors, colors can mean a lot, and colors can bring you power to your brand. Recently, cola has moved from what we see on top, okay, to what we see here. And just because of the use of red, we can understand that they are going again to a really powerful monolithic brand. Okay, they used to have red was 25% of their color. Only one of their packages was fully red, and now suddenly, just there's a third of the 3 cans that are in black or silver. So they want to go back to empower one color. In the most competitive categories, the players, you can identify themselves by the color. In mobile, in banking, in colas, for example, they really are owners of a color. If you're designing a product, think about it. Think it twice. I always ask myself, how come if you are doing a computer or a laptop, why you do it black? They are all black. All your competitors, they do it black. So you have a piece of thing, of plastic that you're going to carry around, that you're going to have thousands of millions of people carrying around a piece of black plastic around, and you can only put your logo on a corner. Branding is not putting your logo and stamping your logo. Branding itself, by the way, means burning in German. That's the origin of the name of branding, which is brand the cows, brand your animals. It's not about this, it's not about putting your logo. It's more about that you can use another material or you can use another color. This is the white theory. If we can identify your product, putting it on white, you're going to be rich. Okay? We all know the brands behind those images. It takes time, okay, to do that, but they've been consistent. Converse has been doing the same sneakers for 50 years. Trivial Pursuit has been doing that little cheeses since the beginning, okay, and Lego and whatever, and Gillette and all those brands. So, and then you should think on your packaging. Water. Water is probably a commodity, and we buy small water bottles every day. In the water category, the 2 elements of branding is the shape of the bottle and the small etiquette and pack and label that you put there. How come only 2 brands have a very specific shape of packaging? I mean, if it's critical for you on identifying, we have Perrier and we have Solan de Cabras. For the rest, they look the same. And that's the most critical brand touch point in the water category. So think it twice. And of course, you're advertising. The moment you start communicating, don't try to put too much information. This generates more awareness than a campaign with a photo of your product, with a price there, with a promotion, etc., etc., etc. There's a really nice and old video on YouTube that it's how would Microsoft designed the first iPod packaging. Have you seen that video? You can have a look at that. It's really interesting and give an image of how those two brands are different in a way. The retail experience. Tesla defines themselves as a software with wheels. If you're telling that to people and you're saying that you're not in the automotive industry, when you do store, you don't put a car, a finished product. You put it like the chassis, the skeleton of your car, because you're going to build it like if it was software. And you go to a store of them, and you can see that, and you can, through the screens, through the walls, build up your car. And that will help us to understand why Tesla is a software company and not an automotive company. Okay. Those are, I've been talking a lot on physical brand touchpoints, and probably you've heard about the paid, earn, and own touchpoints. So this is another model, another way to put brand touchpoints in order. Paid media, you know what paid media is. I will make a short story about it. It's everything that you should invest money, mostly, to promote your brand, digitally or offline, for example, is considered to be paid media. There are some areas of crossing, like, for example, earned media, which is everything, every free mention that you get online, reviews, videos on YouTube of influencers who talk about you. There's here an in-between point, which is all the influencers and Instagrammers that you pay to promote and put some tweets or Instagram regarding your product or your brand or whatever. I would suggest you to invest in your own media if you're a startup. Create content, relevant content, be creative, creating your own content, and then think on how you're going to promote that content. Do not think on a website. Do not think on a blog. Do not think on a content platform. Create the content and then identify through which channels we're going to spread that content. Okay? That's one learning from companies that we've been working with. So there are a couple of examples of companies that they've been really focusing on creating content and that their brand has been created by the community. GoPro. Okay. We don't know anything about the product. We don't know how megapixels they have. We don't know how long the battery lasts. We don't know many of the product things because they've been positioning that you can be a hero. They've been telling us that we can be heroes, showing us videos of people like us doing crazy stuff and inviting us to do so. And then we believe that and we start recording ourselves and giving them authorization in most of the cases to use those images and share them. And the moment you go to a point of sale, a physical point of sale, and you see a display of GoPro, there's not a single mention about the product description. You just have a small screen, which is in a constant loop of video of people doing crazy stuff. People like us, apart from some professionals, okay? And they will say, I want to be a hero. And you grab one of the cameras, which costs $500. We're buying. What we are buying is doing those crazy stuff. Okay, that's what we're buying. And also about the power of influencers and ambassadors. They can be great people for your brand. They can help you a lot if you know how to choose the good person, the good guys, the good girls, the good ambassadors, and what to give them in exchange. it's been so burned out, the thing of using people and influencers to promote your brand, that you should be very careful on how they post about your brand or your products. If it's too evident and too obvious that you're paying them, you create the opposite effect of what you're looking for. Okay. Any questions? I don't know what time it is. Okay. Yeah. I'm already finished. So whatever you do, whatever you create, whatever brand touchpoint you develop, think on this. Or more than this, think on Steve Jobs. Okay? That was an example of consistency with the Levi's, the sweater, the New Balance for 20 plus years, wearing the same. So people will not get bored. Okay? Just be consistent. Okay? A couple of examples before I finish, just to explain you some of couple of things that we did so for the last year, I think it was. You know Buddy? Buddy is a nice startup. It's like the Tinder. It's a mix of Tinder and Airbnb or Idealista. The idea is really nice. The way you navigate through the app is the same way as Tinder. It's for roommates. It's for looking for to share a flat. And you know how important it is. It's as important the room as the people who will live on that flat. So what you see is a picture of the room and a picture of the person who is the landlord officially, or who's there living in the house. And you just skip or not. It's pretty much focused also to start up some relationships. Okay, and well, the project was pretty specific to create their brand identity. They came with a name already to us, and we just decided, hey, why don't we create those toasts, which are funny, which means a lot, which is a kind of cheap breakfast that most of us have every now and then or on the weekend, and a very funny and colorful images to focus on those toasts as an iconic element, and that's it. It was that easy. I have nothing more to add than the toast. Okay, the toast was like a key element for them to express their difference. And another project that I'm a little bit we more proud of, because we started. It was a huge change done in 3 weeks. Crazy time, because there used to be Nubello. I don't know if you know Nubello. Okay, so Francesc from Nubello came to us, say, okay, there's a big part of my business that it's not mine anymore. I've sold it to guys in Australia, and on December 12th last year, my website, my Nubello.com, is going to redirect to freelancer in Australia. So we need to create a new brand, and we're gonna focus only in a part of our services, which is long-term recruitment, not short projects like they used to do, but like a headhunter. Okay, and their attitude, they ask us for a new name, and their attitude as a startup was so radically different from Michael Page, for example, and other existing recruiters and headhunters, that we said, hey, you should be called Bandit, because they are focusing specifically on IT profiles. So it's like the band of IT guys. And the name is like the Robin Hood of the headhunters, you know, and they love the idea. So another learning from being a startup, and they invite anyone in the office to choose the name. And I can tell you, Francesc, which is the CEO and the founder, he left the room because he has to go to Mexico in the middle of the meeting after seeing all the names. And he said, you know, I prefer, and he said another one. But then all the staff, like 10, 20 people who was there, they came in and they all vote, and they choose Bandit, and that was the name. So the process of decision making on a startup is really different from my huge clients like Unilever. They take months to decide. No one decides, okay, there, or at PepsiCo. It takes so much time to decide. And then you can risk. With the name as Bandit, you should, it's a promise that you do to your employees, to yourself as a CEO, how you should behave, how you're going to behave as a company. If you're called bandit and then you behave like Michael Page, the whole thing collapses. Okay, so it's really a promise that you do to yourself. And that's it. One color, one idea of the B, which is a piece of puzzle. We are putting the piece of puzzle on a company, that people that you need, that really fits on your company. And that was the concept for removing that part of the B, which is the idea of having that piece of puzzle that you should include there. I think that's it. Thank you, and feel free to ask me questions. So.